spoilers. 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 Run away if you don't want to. What's up, guys? Welcome to here. We are to do a spoiler discussion for chapter 237 of Jujutsu Kaisen, which is known as, I have no idea. Absolutely zero idea. I don't know. I cannot read the Raws. So I have no idea what the chapter's called, but we find in my heart of hearts, bro, we got some juicy stuff in this chapter. And Kashimo lived. He made it through the chapter. So we got a lot to talk about. So let's not waste any more time and let's hop right into it. What's up, guys? Welcome to here. Fun fact, I do have it on me. And I keep it on me at all times. And guess who else has it on him and is keeping it on him at all times? I'm sorry. Your boy is geeking and maybe slightly tweaking. But with that being the case, let's hop right into the chapter itself. So we open up big. Kashimo is arriving on the battlefield. And this is so fun. I see there's some questions I have about how both of these characters, we'll talk about the other one, arrived to the battlefield as quick as they did. They must have started running like forever ago. Like, I have no idea how they got here this quickly. But we see Kashimo is running into the carnage, staff at hand, sparking up. Well, actually, no, he's not sparking at first. But we see from the heavens, Kashimo is not the only one rushing back to the battlefield. Someone who we've been waiting for a hot minute has decided to show their face after a volume. We have not, this character had a mention, but we had not seen them in that long. And Uraume is literally falling from the heavens. Like, it's sort of starting to snow, which does explain a lot of the weird particles that were in chapter 236. I didn't even realize, or I didn't comment on those because I thought that was just, I'm not sure, symbolic stuff, the snow of passing or whatever. No, that appears to have actually been legitimate snow. And I guess Uraume was just watching from the heavens. I don't know why that signals me so much. Once again, I'll see once the official translation comes out. But as the lightning god approaches the battlefield, literally from the heavens, Uraume just falls. I do know that. Hold on, let me double check that. I'm gonna get out the Googler. I'm gonna double check. I'm pretty sure Uraume was there, so I guess they also. Ooh, that was loud. But I guess Uraume also just ended up dodging the Hollow Purple, which is once again a very impressive speed feat. Uraume is so weird. I say that in a scaling sense. They have some of the weirdest, wonkiest, yet craziest feats in the entire series. And it seems like we're going to get some more weird, wonky, and wacky feats from them in a little bit. But the thing I want to check is, were they there, standing on top of that building? Because if they were, and they just flew up into the heavens on an ice thing, I have no idea. It's one of the most metal entrances that we get in the series. I have 5 of them bad boys. I want to make a ranking for my top 5 or top 10 favorite entrances in the series, because JJK, it's got them. But it's just crazy seeing Uraume literally just fall from the sky. And the thing I extra love about it is that they are just so about the business. They're like, I'm not letting you do this. Don't spoil his mood. Yeah, yo, it's crazy. And another thing that interests me is the idea that they could have intervened at any time, really. Especially with what they have, they could have shown up at any time. But this does what I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I do want to check this chapter, though. I want to see if they were there, or if I am just losing my good mind. I'm pretty sure they were there. I believe I got to go to chapter 223, if I'm not mistaken. Let me take a look in a book. Reading No Rainbow. Because the thing is, the purple was fired at long range. So I need to take a look. I think wow. Lord Sukuna, it's the 24th. The duel is today. Well, what time and place? We didn't specify, but I'll know. Is that so? Yeah, okay. So the thing is, Uraume managed to dodge the purple. That is, Uraume has some of the weirdest feats. tagging post Sakurajima colony Maki and absolutely holding her down, dominating all of Jujutsu high at once, casually palming a piercing blood. Like, I don't know why. They're just Himothy. Or Themothy. Because once again, we have no idea about their gender. However, speaking of another person who I honestly wasn't expecting to show up this soon. I mean, Uraume kind of makes sense, right? Because obviously they would also be watching the battle between Gojo and Sukuna. Literally from the heavens, I guess. The pseudo translations I have call them the ice star, and them literally floating on a giant mass of ice in the heavens is kind of cold. See what I did there? But with that being the case, another person shows up, and I didn't even register the fact that they weren't there in 235, but it makes sense. Another person somehow, like, I have no idea how he did this. Hakari Kinji appears from the air and challenges Uraume. Now, negative 15 idea how he did this? Like, I have no clue. Like, Kashimo at least is leaping, like, horizontally. And also, Kashimo had absolutely no connection to Gojo. So I can imagine the moment that Gojo got slashed, Kashimo was like, oh, battle's done. And he, like, immediately booked it out there. But I guess Hakari did the exact same thing, and he also somehow got, like, into the heavens. Like, literally, Uraume's, like, let me look at that first page. Uraume's ice star, that ice platform that they're on, is in the sky. Like, dead in the sky. So Hakari in base must have some insane hops or something, or someone must have dropped him off, because he literally lands on top of this gigantic ice spire. Or not even lands, like, he's falling in midair. And I don't know, maybe Hakari went bring, 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 bring. Maybe he heard all my allegations that he was the weakest of the Jujutsu high heavy hitters, and was like, hold on, Gege, I need you to make me prove this pencil man wrong, because he's challenging Uraume directly. And apparently, according to the rough translations, apparently he made a promise, so he can't let Uraume live. Hakari opens his domain, and Uraume activates ice formation against them. So we're gonna see Hakari versus Uraume. That's a very interesting battle. I'm intrigued to see how things are going to end up scaling out. Because once again, Uraume looking Maki dead in the face and releasing more killing intent than, I have no idea. I can't even think of a comparison that a orca whale looking at a seal on a lone iceberg, like, releasing more slaughtering intent than that, managed to tag and hold Sakurajima Maki, or post Sakurajima Maki, with their ice techniques. Admittedly, it was a maximum output, but Hakari, if he, like, especially considering he's just opening domain now. One of the biggest things I kept mentioning was the fact that Hakari's not in jackpot. Like, he seemingly has not done it at all today. You know, he hasn't gotten the rush, the fever at all today. So the fact that he's coming in on Uraume in base and is trapping them in domain, that's a little interesting. This is going to be, because this essentially means, unless Hakari's omega lucky today, unless the numbers are totally in his favor, if the house is omega rigged in his favor, he's going to have to survive in base against Uraume for him to hit the jackpot. I know the big battle that we're supposed to be focusing on, and I highly doubt we'll see any continuation of this battle anytime soon, really. Like, I'm presuming we won't see, unless these two battles are interspersed with each other, which I kind of don't want. I will admit, I like the setup of this battle. I kind of don't want it to get in the way of Kashimo versus Sukuna. I don't think we'll be seeing this for another. Being generous to Kashimo, he's already activated his curse technique in this chapter, but I'm hoping, we're gonna be talking a lot about Kashimo and his curse technique in a little bit, but I'm hoping we won't see this for another, like, 3 or 4 chapters. I hope these two fights end up taking up the volume, essentially. And Hakari versus Uraume. This will definitely, because once again, Uraume is pretty important, in my opinion, for scaling who's, like, faster and stronger. Not necessarily more durable. I'm in the camp that Hakari is arguably the most durable out of the Jujutsu heavy hitters when he's in jackpot, because that's my own weird interpretation of cursed energy and stuff like that. So I'll talk about that more in another video. So I'm interested to see how these two match up, since Uraume, completely fresh for the most part. They just dodged a purple. It doesn't seem like they took any damage from it. They're literally perfectly clean. Hakari's obviously been sitting around all day watching Gojo fight, so he's perfectly clean. These two are going into a battle fresh, so whoever wins It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a very big deal. If Uraume wins, then that puts her in a precedent, once again, fulfilling the role, as Kusakabe called them, a monster within the world. And they shouldn't be slept on, even though they're simply Sukuna's attendant. And if Hakari wins, I may have to, like, especially if it's like certain speed feats end up happening, I may end up having to slide Hakari up 2 whole notches. I know a bunch of Hakari fans are itching and scratching for it, because I'm apparently, I guess so. I've never necessarily been the most generous to Hakari on videos. Like, especially considering I'm in the camp that I believe that Kashimo would have won that fight if there was no massive pool of water nearby. But with that being the case, I know a bunch of Hakari fans are like, yo, Pencil is a serial Hakari down player. So if he gets a good fight on Uraume and wins, I may have to shut my mouth up. You know, it would literally not be the first time I was wrong with scaling characters. And I'm happy to be wrong again. So Hakari going in, Idle Death Gamble up against Uraume. I'm very excited to see how that fight rolls out. In a bit. Admittedly, I do not want to see it right now. And we see that Hakari's domain forms on top of the ice sphere. Or not the ice sphere, the ice pillar that's coming down. And we see that, I'm not sure if this is Sukuna, because notably Sukuna, while still fully damaged, by the way, he has not started his healing process yet. Sukuna, he flicks a hand up. And I'm not sure if he melts Uraume's ice, or if Uraume's ice, since they're now trapped in a domain, it now gets shut down and then starts to melt. Like their technique and stuff like that. I don't know. That's very interesting. I wonder if we're going to get a Uraume domain expansion. Considering that's something that should be entirely possible, like, they're probably as long-lived as most of the original characters. Ooh. One moment. Is she? Is they? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Uraume's, like, just as, if not older, than pretty much every single Heian era character who we've seen with domains, and Uraume's been around for a hot minute. So if Uraume opens domain, Hakari, no, it is stated in the original Japanese translations that Hakari's domain is particularly good in tug of wars. So even if Uraume has a domain, unless that bad boy's barrierless, it could be in some trouble, especially if Hakari... Okay, I will admit, I am very excited to see that fight, mainly because that one is not a foregone conclusion. All the Kashimo fans out there may have just snapped their heads like, what you mean by that? And don't you lie to me. Oh, you know what's happening to you, man. You know exactly what's happening to you, man. Don't you lie to me. Don't believe. Don't try to make me believe that you have faith. But I don't know. Considering what pops off in this chapter, though, I think the likelihood of Kashimo winning has actually gone down massively. But we do get to see that as Sukuna raises his hand, the massive ice star begins to melt. And from it comes something, admittedly a gorgeous image. I love since all the ice pretty much melted at once, I love the torrential downpour that covers Sukuna, almost washing away the battle with him and Gojo. Like, hold on, let me see. Let me double check. They aren't all cleaned, but he's cleaned up a whole lot more in comparison, simply by the water washing over him, which is, I think, a nice way to segment the two battles. Oh, and one thing I do want to mention, I don't think we see his body at all in this chapter, which is interesting. Personally, I was in the camp that Kashimo was going to, like, land in and absolutely desecrate Gojo's body as a way of signaling, like, oh yeah, Gojo's really not coming back. But I'm taking a quick glance throughout the entire chapter, and I don't see Gojo's body anywhere, which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Personally, I'm in the camp that Gojo shouldn't come back, but I'll make a entirely separate video talking about that. But yeah, I'm taking a peek throughout this entire chapter, and I don't see a mention, a notice of the body at all. We get a Gojo mention, at least in the loose translations that I have, but no sighting of his body. Obviously, cut in half. So presumably it doesn't matter, and it could have been washed away in the torrential downfall, considering Sukuna and Gojo were pretty close to each other. But very interesting that we don't even get like an acknowledgement of the body. Considering he was off screen though, I wouldn't be shocked if this is Gege's like continuing the legacy of disrespect. Like, oh yeah, you ain't gonna get nothing close to a burial. Or this could be setting up something with Kenjaku. There's so many different things that could happen with Gojo's body now that it is just laid out there. Are the Six Eyes still there? Have they disappeared yet and are trying to incarnate again to stop Kenjaku? Has that whole cycle of the Six Eyes been stopped entirely since the Star Plasma Vessel got destroyed and it's pretty much useless now? Like, if they're like literally the only Star Plasma Vessels as far as we know, not only Riko from 11 or 12 years ago, but also Yuki Tsukumo, the other Star Plasma Vessel, unless another one was mystically magically born, but they wouldn't even do anything now because it's too late to merge with Tengen. It's been too long. So I wonder if that cycle has even stopped and the Six Eyes won't incarnate again, or if someone is going to have to consume them for their power. However, with that being the case, we cut back to Sukuna and Kashimo. As Kashimo stands back, I love the innate fear he kind of has of the water. Like, he notably stops right before it starts to soak him. Like, he gets seemingly a few droplets on his staff, but that's about it. Because we know Kashimo and water do not mix. But we see that Kashimo realizes that all that ice, all that water was simply to deliver something to the King of Curses. And we that it's Yorozu's gift. So this is interesting. In order to construct this gift, Yorozu made it not just through like construction of her regular variety. She specifically made it with a binding vow that took her life, which is intriguing. That implies that hypothetically Yorozu could have survived there at the very end of her fight, but she decided to go out with a bang and recreate one of Sukuna's cursed tools. This is a big thing for all the Sukuna cursed tools people out there, and I'm kind of right. This thing isn't needed to break through infinity, but like, one low key. But then again, that was a common community idea. So I can't even say this is like pencil code. But hey, Yorozu's gift did end up being one of Sukuna's weapons, and he holds it up high, the cursed tool Kamutoke. And I will admit, I was expecting more of a dagger design. I'm not sure. Any of my weapon experts out there, because I know there are y'all in the comment section. I've seen it. Do you guys know what weapon this will be? Is this like an actual thing that was used? I'm not sure. It doesn't, like, it's something with a handle. Oh, wait, no. Is there a spear on it? I literally can't. Okay, so it is. Oh, so I kind of guessed it. Because I specifically compared this weapon in the Yorozu gift video to something like this. But instead of having a traditional crossguard, or not crossguard, Japanese weapons do not have crossguards. Instead of having a traditional guard here, it seems like the guard is two-sided, which is the two spears on either end, and then the blade is actually much smaller than the guard itself. Very interesting, very interesting. I'm wondering if this technique has anything, or no, this weapon has anything more than what's shown to us in this very chapter. We do get to see that Sukuna wastes absolutely no time invoking this new tool of his, and he blasts an electric attack on Kashimo. And he's... and I do love it. Once again, I'm seeing more and more of Sukuna in Megami's body, which is something that doesn't matter anymore by the end of this chapter, but we'll get to that in a second. But I do like how Sukuna, of all characters, does feel nostalgic as he blasts Kashimo with a lightning attack, and he says, just like good old times. Interesting. But once again, this does play into the deific idea that the original forearm Sukuna had going on. This was established, ironically enough, in Yorozu's flashback, where Sukuna was more revered as a deity that one needed to pacify lest he strike you down. And with Kamutoke, is it Kamutoke? Kamutoke. With Kamutoke, he is actually pretty much a deity that can just randomly throw lightning at you. And this is no, like, small lightning blast either. It's just a simple swing. This blast looks pretty massive. Like, it straight up appears like a bolt of electricity, which is wild. Like, this is bigger than any of the lightning bolts that Kashimo himself has fired. with his cursed energy trait stacking technique. And Sukuna just did this casually. He just... So, any other character outside of Satoru Gojo, unless Sukuna could adapt this with like Maharaga's model, they would probably be cooked by this instantaneously, except for obviously one other character who happens to be based in electricity, which is kind of funny. I wonder what Sukuna's other weapon did. Maybe Uraume made them both. Maybe this is only one of two, but considering this is one Uraume delivered, I assume this is the only one. But we see that Sukuna's actually caught off guard. In a pretty funny panel, he's like, wait, what? As Kashimo stands there, I'm not going to say unfazed. He does have a couple scratches on him, but not too worse for wear. Like, ironically enough, he looks pretty much untouched. I see like 3 or 4 scratches on him. And this is obviously because Kashimo's own cursed energy trait is electricity, or it's at least electricity-like, and thus the electric curse tool is pretty much useless against them, which is hilarious. This is back-to-back where characters that are extremely powerful match up against Sukuna in such a specific way that he can't use the full breadth of his abilities. Though admittedly, this is only like one of Sukuna's curse tools. It's not any of his curse techniques. Kashimo shouldn't have resistance to the fire arrow, to cleave, to dismantle, to spatial slash, any of that. So it is a lucky matchup for Kashimo. He did end up being immune or resistant to the electricity, though it does make me wonder, because a lot of people were consistently hyping up Kashimo as, I think, one of Sukuna's weapons. Like, I forget the full context behind it, but like Kashimo being a lightning deity, very akin to the Raijin, is supposedly like deeply interconnected to Sukuna in his original form in the portrayal of that, and he is like, I think in legend, one of Sukuna's weapons, and that is shown through Kamaoke. I keep saying, is it Kamaoke? Kamatoke. Sorry, I don't know why. I don't know where Kamaoke is coming from, but Kamatoke. And seeing the two match up is very, very interesting. Though presumably, I hope Sukuna can channel other elements through this. He just chose to channel electricity. Maybe he can channel fire, something like that. Because I don't want this new curse tool to be dropped, and then we have to like wait until this fight's over to see it actually in action. And considering Sukuna doesn't put it down or stop using it by the end of this chapter, it's very likely that, well, it has some other sort of use. Even if just as a bladed weapon, it'd be interesting to see Sukuna fight with one. Considering throughout the entire series, despite his original self being portrayed wielding weapons in his first form reveal, and I don't think he was wielding anything in Uro's flashback of him, but also that one, I don't want to say it's a volume cover, the chapter cover for 117 of Sukuna in his original forearm state, with him wielding that. I hope he does keep fighting, especially since Kashimo himself has a weapon. Though it does appear, let me double check, does he even use his weapon throughout this chapter? He seemingly drops it, which is a little bit disappointing. I hope he picks it back up. But then again, maybe it does not work as well with his curse technique. We'll get that. Sorry, I'm yapping so much because this chapter has so many different things in it that I like and I want to talk about. But with that being the case, we do get to see that Kashimo, once again, kind of like Gojo did. It's very interesting that all these characters are going to Sukuna, of all people, for like world perspective or something like that. But Kashimo actually ends up questioning Sukuna in a very specific way. He was like, "Ayo, did you become the strongest? Or were you born the strongest? Were you Sukuna Ryomen because you were born into power, or were you born into power because you're a Sukuna Ryomen?" Essentially, on a twisted version of Geto's question. And that's a very interesting question to come from Kashimo. And we see that Sukuna, we actually get a hint of Sukuna backstory. He mentions that he doesn't actually know, because he was a child that was unwanted. Sukuna was an orphan. Very interesting. That sort of builds up his parallel. But then again, according to Gege, like, Megami wasn't actually like a full-on orphan, just that Toji kind of abandoned him. And obviously Megami's mom left. So, but the idea that both him and Sukuna were both orphans is interesting. That's very, very neat, I guess, but that does kind of make sense. Like, Sukuna's relevance as this deific creature that has no regard for human life, if he started off in life with no one having any regard for him, it makes sense that he would end up being an orphan child, something that had no human connection. And we see that Kashimo himself actually has another question for Sukuna. Okay, You have no idea about that. But then again, that would imply that Sukuna became strong, or maybe had a strong lineage but just didn't know it because he was abandoned. But Kashimo proceeds to ask, how did he interact with others, especially without knowing weakness? Or did he know weakness and show others mercy, or anything like that? Because we see that Kashimo, which makes sense, it does fit in line with his previous characterization, he was pretty sociopathic. He couldn't even understand others. He himself was born the strongest of his era, and thusly he didn't see humans as anything else but fodder or folly to be walked over, things to be trampled, as the loose translation I see calls it, pieces of dirt. And honestly, he wants to know, through Sukuna, is power worth it? How should one use power? And he specifically asked Sukuna to teach him if strength is to be alone and find a place to properly show your powers, and whether or not power is a punishment of being strong. That isolation that comes with it. Once again, it's very interesting that the strongest of all their respective eras, Gojo for the modern era, Sukuna for the Heian era, and Kashimo for the Edo period, or which I forget which exact period he comes from, but all of these strongest have their own respective views, and it's Sukuna, the oldest of them, who is the most sure in himself, the most well-regarded. Kashimo lived to be an old man. That's what we see in that flashback during the Hakari fight. He's not no youngster, despite what his body may convince you he is. So it's interesting. I understand Gojo not understanding himself. Long story short, the man was, 29 by the time of this fight? He was still, I know people twice Gojo's age who still do not have a full comprehensive understanding of themselves. And I can give a complete honest answer. I think you'll always be learning more about yourself. I have confidence in who I am, but even then, my view of myself and my place in the world has shifted consistently. It's something that ever evolves. But Sukuna, someone who lived through his regular life and then rather than ending as a human, simply evolved into something greater, a king of curses, if you will, it seems that he's the only one who understands himself entirely through the disregarding of understanding as a whole, and thusly people who view themselves as the strongest or were the strongest in their respective era, once again, as the sorcerers did 1,000 years ago, are throwing themselves up against Sukuna in order to sharpen themselves and get that better understanding. And once again, if we're going to the idea of those who understand themselves affirm themselves better and will thusly win the battle, then it seems like Kashimo was destined to lose from the start. But, of course, Kashimo does make it through the chapter, and we do get to see that already, simply by Kashimo surviving the first strike and even proposing this question to Sukuna in any way, shape, or form, without a real battle even beginning, Sukuna taps the weapon to his head out of seemingly enough respect. He taps Kamatoke, and he calls Kashimo extravagant, and claims that Gojo was the same. And we see that with this, he challenges Kashimo to fight. And this is interesting. Once again, Sukuna's characterization is something that is fluctuating. I like Sukuna a lot. Trust me, I do. I still think Kenjaku is a way more interesting character, but that's just, once again, my bias for, mad scientist archetypes. So, that's not even me objectively being like, oh, Kenjaku is just an infinitely better character and villain. But seeing Sukuna have respect for those who seemingly asked the question that he once did before, and those who were in that same position once in their lives. It's very interesting seeing Sukuna show respect for people like that. Notably, he has shown respect to people who I didn't think he would show respect to in the past, people he was disrespecting in the very same fight, aka Jogo. But it's interesting. He doesn't even really fight Kashimo. He has no idea who Kashimo is. Kashimo, for all intents and purposes, is a random of randoms. But simply on his mannerisms, his determination, his opening lines, Kashimo is worthy of extravagance, worthy of acknowledgement from the King of Curses. That's very impressive. I'm very interested to see how this fight evolves, considering what gets revealed by the end of this chapter. And we see Kashimo grins, and they lunge into actual battle. Kashimo goes in, using the Nioi staff once again. However, once again, this is 20 Fingers Sukuna. I recently made a video talking about how overwhelmingly powerful he should be in regards to everyone else, and thusly it makes absolute sense to me that at first he feels absolutely no pressure from Kashimo. Even while not healed up at all and missing an arm still, he casually just bats Kashimo's arm off, or his attack off, with a simple swing of Kamatoke, which, once again, makes sense. This guy, even while low on cursed energy, still is super duper efficient, unbelievably powerful, and a deity of his own weight. And we do get to see that he does actually begin to dodge backwards, though. And immediately, I'm not sure if Gege just doesn't like the staff or something. Like, why give him the staff if he's never going to be allowed to use it? Like, he uses the staff a bit against Panda. He carries it around with him all the time. He uses it a little bit against Hakari. He uses it mainly for the lightning strike. And I'll chalk that up to Hakari punching the staff away. But, like, we get one staff swing. Kashima's like, this isn't going to work anymore. And he immediately throws it away. Like, dog, I don't know. I like staff fighters. I'll admit I don't like them as much as sword fighters. That's because I'm biased towards swords. I think swords are cool. But considering Sukuna got a weapon, it would have been nice to see Kashimo get a weapon. Especially considering we don't really get, like, the last time we got a weapon-to-weapon battle, in JJK specifically, is like, what? Miwa versus Maki? Like, all the way back then in Goodwill? And I guess Nobara versus Momo? Like, it's been that long until we got an actual good weapon-to-weapon battle. That's wild. It's crazy to me. But Kashima does immediately throw it away. So, unfortunately, Staff Gang stocks are down right now. Take the investments out of Staff Gang. However, we see that Kashimo wastes absolutely no time. With one little interaction, he's like, okay, I'm gonna need to whip it out already. And he moves back and activates his curse technique, Genju Kohakusa. Kohasaku, which translates into Phantom Beast Amber. Very, very interesting. So, I recorded a Kashimo Curse Technique video. It seems like I was kind of right. Well, no, this isn't me. Once again, the second idea mainly came from the community. We were all pseudo right. Phantom Beast Amber is Kashimo's curse technique that he activates immediately. And we see that Sukuna actually is, seemingly enough, pressed instantaneously. He's shocked as he looks upon Kashimo's Phantom Beast Amber, and he immediately gets clocked in the face. He actually gets two-pieced. It's hard to tell at first, but he gets hit with the left, comboed into Kashimo's right, and smacked away. So, one of the biggest things I was talking about in the video was how he was going to have, like, this pseudo energy-like form, like nigh on pure energy. And this form does seem to give him some sort of boost, as Sukuna is unable to react like he did at first with Kashimo's initial swings. And Sukuna gets punched twice. And then we see Kashimo reel back, puff them cheeks up, and you literally see his face burst into energy as he fires off a blast straight at Sukuna. Very, very interesting. I do like this look for Kashimo, this bursting with cursed energy kind of appearance. And interestingly enough, this does not seem to follow the properties of his electricity. And the reason I say that is because this kind of flowing cursed energy looks like all other flowing cursed energy, rather than specifically his electric trait, which is something that some people were theorizing. A lot of people were theorizing that maybe his curse technique would actually have nothing to do with electricity, because look at Hakari, I think the only other character, like notably those two characters are the only ones with specific curse technique traits. And his rough, scratchy kind of curse trait has nothing to do with his domain or technique at all. So a lot of people were theorizing this, and at least for this initial breath type attack, it appears that Kashimo does not have any sort of influence from his base trait, which is interesting. Very, very interesting. And I feel the same way about that I do about him throwing away the staff. Yeah, sure, is it cool that we're getting this new technique? Is it cool that it seems to have very little ties to his initial electricity? Yeah. Kind of wanted it, though. Would have been cool to see a real lightning god. But to be fair, this technique does not initially or 100% break down any lightning or disprove that he has any sort of lightning techniques. It just pushes away from the idea, which is interesting. We do get to see that with this breath type attack, he does in the Lugi, there's so much damage to Sukuna that it does literally nothing at all. Like, I'm not sure if it did it even damage him at all. I'm not sure if those scratches are from Gojo's purple or from this actual blast, but bro was on his Kaido type beat and used Boro Blast, and we see that Kashimo's CT remakes his body to be able to blast any kind of attack that Kashimo can make from his cursed energy. Notably, the imagery we see for Kashimo is seemingly an internal scan of him. He's become more animalistic, which does explain the Phantom Beast Amber. And with that being the case, his static form appears to sort of be coated in flowing cursed energy. A big thing that I will admit, it does seem, I didn't talk about it so far, Sukuna is not using his technique at all. So that is something that Sukuna is seemingly going to self-impose. He's not going to whip out his technique just yet. He does whip out something that may lead to his technique, but even with Kashimo activating his technique, Sukuna is not actively engaging with it properly at first. And we see Kashimo, once again, he goes in for an attack and he launches off a blast at Sukuna, but Sukuna's still able to dodge. So even with this amp technique form, it seems like Sukuna, before doing what he does at the end of the chapter, is still actually somewhat relative to Kashimo, which is why I'm really hoping, super duper crazy in my heart of hearts, hoping that this form has stages to it or it can keep leveling up or something, because Sukuna gets a beefy amp by the end of this chapter. However, we do get to see that Kashimo does keep track of Sukuna and seemingly fires off another blast, but instead of firing off a blast, which Sukuna appears to go to block with Kamatoke, Kashimo just punches him in the face again, which is absolutely hilarious. Once again, seeing Sukuna get rocked about is funny, but I learned my lesson this time. Sukuna getting rocked means little to nothing in the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. And we see that apparently his CT enhances his agility, and the waves he blasts evaporate anything that get touched. But Kashimo suppresses the human body to make this happen. Or not suppresses, surpasses it. And thus, once his curse technique ends, his body will break down. Admittedly, it says his body will break. It doesn't mean he'll perish, which does fit into one of my stipulations I made for the Kashimo curse technique video, that he's not actually going to perish. I think Sukuna will have to get him up out of here. Or maybe Kashimo could even be saved. I highly doubt that, though. I don't think Kashimo would want to be saved. In a similar vein to I don't think Gojo really wanted to be saved. He wants to go out to Sukuna if he has to go out at all. And interesting that the narrator makes a claim that anything that Kashimo blasts will be instantly vaporized, because Sukuna wasn't instantly vaporized or evaporated. So are you sure about that? Like, are you 100% confident that Kashimo's blast will vaporize anything that they touch? I get it's Sukuna, but like, dog, I wonder what the official translation will say about that, because if so, that's just an immediate contradiction. However, with that being the case, Kashimo lunges in to keep on the offensive, and we see that... See, this is interesting. It looks like... I can't tell who fires the bolt here. It looks like one of Kashimo's bolts. So it looks like he launches it at Sukuna. And once again, this is a tiny bolt, which is interesting. It seems like his curse trait, despite him surpassing the human body, is active, because once he lands... How many hits is it? It's... So before he transforms, Sukuna bats off one hit, so that's one charge placed. Sukuna then dodges the next hit, so that doesn't count. He lands two more hits on Sukuna. One, he starts to transform into the Phantom Beast Amber. He lands another hit through the Oral Blast that he fires from his mutated mouth. So that's 4 hits. Then Sukuna dodges, he blocks, but then he gets rocked by a 5th hit. And then a bolt comes out. So it seems like, at least for right now, Kashimo still needs to land hits before his cursed trait can come into effect. And we see as the blast goes to incinerate Sukuna, it's that time, ladies and gentlemen. Apparently, according to the narrator, Sukuna had a method of reviving his original body only once using reverse curse technique. But he had stopped it. He had not activated it yet. Once again, presumably to use Megumi's face against Sasuke Gojo. And maybe Megumi's technique. We don't know. We don't know if maybe he still has access to the 10 Shadows, or if he's even going to use it anymore now that it served its purpose. But now that he's fighting an opponent that no longer stands invulnerable to him, and no longer requires the 10 shadows and has no connection to Megami Fushiguro's face. Megami is done. Gone. There's no other way to say it, because incarnated before Kashimo in his true form is the four-armed beast himself. Ryomen Sukuna is back. The transformation of reincarnation has been restarted. So Sukuna has returned. Amazing chapter this week. Honestly, I will admit, Sukuna looking a little bit rough in this final panel, but regardless of that, this chapter is an omega giga crazy W. It has a bunch of, well, first things first, and the stuff I didn't expect. The reveal of Uraume versus Hakari being set up in the background, crazy excited to see that fight. I hope other people jump in to help Hakari, or even if Hakari can beat Uraume on their own, that's even crazier. So Hakari versus Uraume being set up, I'm just as excited for that as I am for the Sukuna versus Kashimo fight. Seeing Sukuna finally getting the gift reveal, and it being Kamatoke, and it being that weapon. I admit, I kind of did want the spear, so we could have like a spear versus staff kind of thing going on, but considering Kashimo throws the staff away instantly, and Kamatoke appears immediately worthless, at least against Kashimo, I'll take what I can get. Having the confirmation of Yorozu's gift is good enough for me. Maybe it's not the entire gift, maybe there's more, but simply the gift at all existing, chef's kiss. Happy that we get to see it. Number 2, seeing Kashimo's resistance to the gift. Nice. Makes sense with him having a cursed energy type trait. Though admittedly, this isn't the first time that Sukuna's overridden a cursed energy trait kind of resistance. Like, Jogo got beat by fire. So, I wouldn't be entirely shocked if, just for the disrespect of it all, Sukuna uses Kamatoke to defeat Kashimo. Just because he says, let's have a lightning battle. Number 3, seeing Kashimo and Sukuna acknowledge each other. Kashimo acknowledged Sukuna as someone who is more knowledgeable, someone who is more ancient than him, someone who has a better understanding of power and strength and what needs to be done with that. Nice. Seeing Sukuna immediately, before they even really start to fight, acknowledge Kashimo as someone extravagant like Gojo himself. Very nice. Seeing Kashimo waste no time and activate his curse technique. Admittedly, so far, it's cool, but I am expecting a little bit more sauce, you know what I'm talking about? I'm expecting a little bit more, but this is the first chapter with it. Sukuna just incarnated into his original body. Kashimo can still keep transforming, maybe fully into that weird little state we see him in the explanation of the curse technique. Hopefully we get to see more of that. We get to see more of the Thunder God, but even so far, this initial manipulation and blasting energy, and the fact that he still has his curse technique trait to call his lightning bolts, that's going to be very interesting. Though admittedly, I think this is the first time we've seen it miss. But that is due to Sukuna's transformation. He can't do that again. So that's cool, and obviously, getting Form Sukuna back is crazy, dog. Overall, crazy W chapter. One thing I wish we got to see a mention of Gojo's body, but that could be Gege plotting something for Kenjaku, or for all my Gojo fans having copium out there, it could be Gege plotting something for Gojo's resurrection. I don't know. Once again, I'll talk about that in his own video. I'd be happy to be wrong on that one too, but we'll talk about that at another time. However, thank you guys so much for making it to the end of the spoiler discussion. If you made it all the way to the end, type "let's have a lightning battle" in the comment section down below, because I feel like that's going to be super appropriate soon enough. So let's have a lightning battle in the comment section down below if you made it all the way to the end. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support for as low as $1 a month. You can exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This chapter is in fact worthy. I'm not sure if I did that. I need to double check that. This is That Guy with the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a very big thank you to our $3 members, O'Connor Plays, Redwolf 4765, and Herb Skills. I'd like to give another very big thank you to our $5 patrons, Sean, Redwolf4765, Midnight Gemlord, Kevin, and Demix LND. I'd like to give another beefy thank you to our $10 patrons, Robbie Uchiha and iDemokami. And I'd like to give a very, very hefty thank you to our $25 member, Alex Ice Rose. I'd like to give another very big, scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our two $25 patrons, Igneal and Calvin Elder.